Let's just start with a question that honestly gets right to the heart of everything we're talking about in leadership today. Just take a second with this. Who are you really? When the metrics are down, the praise kind of fades away, and there's no audience left to perform for.
Okay, so let's dive right into this. In this explainer, we're going to unpack a whole new way of thinking about leadership. It's not about chasing approval or validation, no. It's about building an internal foundation that is so solid you can lead with real authority and integrity, long after the applause stops.
You know, for so many leaders out there, there's this hidden crisis just bubbling under the surface of all their success. It's this constant, draining feeling of being on a performance treadmill, right? Just running faster and faster and getting absolutely nowhere.
And that feeling, it's the #1 symptom of a performance culture. It doesn't matter what you achieve, there's just no finish line. There's no point where you finally feel like, okay, I've arrived, I'm legitimate. It's a system that is basically designed for burnout because it's always demanding more proof of your worth every single day.
So let's actually put a name to this problem. We're living and leading in what you could call a prove-it economy. It's a system where our fundamental value as people gets all tangled up with our measurable output. This is what happens when our worth becomes just another metric.
And this definition really gets to the core of the issue. It's a distortion. It's that moment when your performance stops being a tool you use to get something done, and instead it becomes your entire identity. All of a sudden, your legitimacy as a leader feels like it completely depends on hitting the numbers and getting that applause.
And you can see this play out in some really damaging ways. People start to feel less like people and more like cogs in a machine. That relentless pressure to perform gets disguised as just having high standards. Leaders get obsessed with their public image, their platform. And maybe the worst part? Teams stop telling the truth because it just feels too risky. All communication becomes carefully managed for survival.
This quote just nails the human cost of it all. Even in companies or nonprofits with the best missions in the world, this kind of pressure cooker environment can just strip all the humanity out of the work. The mission loses its soul, and the people, well, they become instruments in a cold machine.
So what do we do about this? How do we fix it? Well, the solution isn't a quick fix. It's a fundamental paradigm shift. We have to move away from that old model and start embracing a new equation for leadership, one that actually starts from the inside out. Let's just compare these two models, side by side. The old way, the legacy model, is all outside in. You focus on skills to get results, and you just kind of hope a good culture happens. But what you usually get is performance addiction. The new model, what we're calling presence leadership, completely flips the script. It says a leader's inner state, their consciousness, their stability, that's the real starting point. A healthy culture and real resilient excellence can only grow from that stable core.
And I want to be really clear here, this is not a soft idea. This isn't about feelings. It's about structure. It's about building a solid, load-bearing infrastructure for your leadership. And we call this framework alignment architecture. It's the inner structure that literally shapes everything you do on the outside.
This whole architecture is built on 4 connected domains: identity, thought, dignity, and trust. Think of them like the pillars that hold up your leadership. And while they all work together, today we're going to zero in on the absolute foundation, the one that everything else is built on, your identity architecture.
So your identity architecture, this is the bedrock. It's the foundation for everything else. It's all about securing your own sense of self so that your leadership isn't just a knee-jerk reaction to whatever pressures and demands are coming at you from the outside.
So what does that actually mean? The crucial point is this. Identity architecture is about defining who you are completely separate from your performance. What are your non-negotiables? What part of you stays constant whether you're winning or you're failing? That internal stability, that's the source of clean, effective leadership.
And this is where so many leaders get into real trouble. The problem starts when you confuse your role, what you do, or your image, how other people see you, with your core identity. The second your job title or your reputation becomes who you are, you become incredibly vulnerable to performance addiction, because any threat to those things feels like a threat to your very existence.
But when you lead from an aligned identity, from a place of legitimacy, the entire culture transforms. Suddenly, standards can be really high without being punishing. The leader's own stability creates a sense of psychological safety around them, where telling the truth isn't a career-ending risk anymore. So what's the ultimate takeaway here? What does all this get you? Well, building this inner architecture creates a totally new kind of leadership presence, one that has real authority without needing to constantly perform.
And that's the practical payoff right there. An anchored identity sets you free. You can be influential because you're grounded in something real, not because you're putting on a show. And you can hold yourself and your team accountable for results without falling into shame or beating yourself up when things inevitably go wrong.
At the end of the day, this all comes down to integrity, but not just as some vague moral concept. We're talking about integrity as congruence, a deep alignment between who you are on the inside and how you show up on the outside. It's that simple, powerful state of being the same person whether anyone is watching or not.
And that, of course, brings us right back to where we started. This question isn't just a philosophical exercise, it's a structural diagnostic for your leadership. Answering it honestly is the first, most critical step. Because from that stable identity, you can then go on to build the other architectures of thought, dignity, and trust, and create cultures that are not only excellent, but also deeply, wonderfully human.